Family is caught off guard by late neighbors' plan for their daughter. When an elderly man began to feel lost in life, he decided to take a leap and get to know the folks who lived next door to him. Not only did he spread plenty of cheer during his lifetime, but what he did last had such an impact on those around him that it started a movement that's already inspired thousands. It was December 18, 2018, when a young girl received a big surprise from her elderly neighbor, Mr. Watson. He had hidden something in his home in Cardiff, Wales, just for her. See, before Ken Watson retired, he was a salvage diver. This meant that he recovered parts of ships, airplanes, and other structures that had sunk into the water. He was an adventurer in every sense of the word, a keen metal detectorist, classical music and opera fan, wood turner, accordion player, election canvasser, and Great British Bake Off viewer. Watson said that he could go long periods of time without speaking to anyone. His activities got him out of the house. After my wife had passed away, I took a long time to settle, he said. There's a space around me. I still hear her voice and speak to her. I began parachute jumping. I enjoy these sort of things. I feel the rush of the air. The second jump was the best. I thought, gosh, I'm an eagle. When he was 85, he made what was probably the most daredevil move of his lifetime. He climbed on top of a small stunt plane and remained standing on its upper wings while it soared through the air. His neighbors, Owen and Carolyn Williams, couldn't believe their ears when they heard of his adventures. They were stunned to learn what their neighbor was up to and couldn't wait to get to know him better. Owen, Carolyn, and their daughter Cotty met Mr. Watson in 2014. The day after we moved in, we heard some banging and found Ken working on a ladder in his overalls, Carolyn said. During our first meeting, he gave our dog a biscuit. She absolutely loved him from that moment on. He was such a character. As much as the Williams dog loved their neighbor, nothing compared to the sparkle in Mr. Watson's eyes the first time he met the Williams' daughter Cotty. The feeling was mutual. The baby adored him. Her youth brought him incredible joy, and he couldn't get enough of the time they spent together. In fact, he said he wanted to live to be 100 years old just to see Cotty grow up. Sadly, 4 years after the Williamses met him, he passed away when Cotty was only 2 years old. Despite his age, Mr. Watson had always seemed so vital. His neighbors would miss his stories, his visits, and his optimistic outlook on life. It wasn't until Mr. Watson's son Ian rummaged through his belongings that the pair realized that they still had a way to celebrate their favorite neighbor. He had left them quite a surprise, or 14 surprises to be exact. Hidden in his attic, buried deep behind boxes full of memories and covered in just a little dust, lay a large sack, complete with an instruction sheet for his son. He was to deliver the sack to the neighbors at once and make sure they take a look inside. Ian followed his instructions and rang the Williams doorbell that same night. When they looked inside the sack, they saw that it was filled to the brim with wrapped gifts. Mr. Watson's last wish was to put a smile on Cotty's face one more time. Rather than giving Cotty the 14 presents at age 2, where she wouldn't remember much of it, her parents planned to give her one from the pile every Christmas. Surely, she might grow out of some of the gifts, but the memory of Mr. Watson's joy would always remain just as strong. When Owen brought the bag into the house, the whole family teared up. I don't know how long he put them away, Carolyn said, whether it was over the last 2 years or whether he bought them towards the end of his life. Since receiving the generous gesture from the late Mr. Watson, the Williamses have opened one present. It was a children's book titled Christmas Eve at the Mellops by Tommy Ungerer, about 4 brothers in search of the perfect Christmas tree for their family. Ken's son Ian, whose sister gave the gifts to Cotty, said, "I've known about this since before my father died. He was a very kind man. It is a lovely story, and I would like to tell the world what a lovely guy he was." While Cotty never truly got to know her neighbor, her parents will be sure to tell her all of his stories and remind her of the kind man who left her all those presents. After all, Mr. Watson was a great inspiration to many and a reminder that it's never too late to follow your dreams. As Mr. Watson demonstrated, a neighbor isn't just someone who lives next door, it's someone who truly looks after you. Neighbors Tisha and Audrey didn't even know each other that well, but fate had their families on a collision course. Audrey was a single mom down the block, and one of her daughters was friends with one of Tisha's daughters. When Audrey needed to go get some last-minute tests, she had nowhere else to turn. The next morning, the test results came back. Audrey called Tisha and asked her to break the news to her kids. She had stage 2 esophageal cancer, and while she was okay for the time being, her future hung in the balance. Like Ken Watson, she had to seize the moment. Tisha agreed to keep watching the kids while Audrey got treated. After all, it was the least she could do for a neighbor. However, it wasn't long before doctors came back with an even more shocking prognosis. They gave Audrey only a few months to live. She was getting sicker day by day, and there wasn't much time left. Audrey called Tisha, desperate. "Can you take care of my children when I go?" she asked. Tisha was stunned. What else could she do? The only other option was foster care, and Tisha had been through the foster system herself. She knew it was no way for a kid to grow up. Children need stability and a loving home. So she told Audrey yes. Shortly afterward, Audrey passed, and her kids moved into the Boachman house. It was a no-brainer for Tisha. She added 3 places to the dinner table, rearranged the sleeping situations a bit, and welcomed the kids with open arms. The house was a little cramped and things got messy, but that was that. However, when Tisha and Kevin filled out the paperwork to become Audrey's kids' legal guardians, the situation got tricky. They couldn't get approved as foster parents because their home was too small. And even though both parents worked, Tisha worried whether the money would continue to feed everybody. Unbeknownst to Tisha, their community saw them struggling and wanted to help out. The Boachman's neighbor, Elizabeth Thames, reached out to local TV station Fox 5 News. She knew the station had a team called the Surprise Squad who helped locals in need. When the Surprise Squad got wind of the story, they recognized they had a special family on their hands. So they loaded up a video crew in their car and drove down to the Boachman home to pay them a visit. Caught off guard, Tisha opened the door. Her dog was barking, and she had a million things to do. Who were these strangers on the porch? But when they explained they'd been sent by her neighbor Elizabeth, she let them inside. The Surprise Squad was astonished by the family's adjustment to the new living situation. The 2 oldest Boachman kids, Holly and Chad, were sleeping in the kitchen and the living room after giving up their rooms for the younger kids. This was just one change. The family had even converted their loft into a sleeping space for the youngest boys, but the foster care system required them to install a wall to make it a real bedroom. That was the big problem. The cost of putting the wall in was more than they could afford. "I can't lose these kids," Tisha said. "I may not have had them in my belly, but I have them in my heart." That's when the squad dropped a big news. The Surprise Squad already had a construction team ready to build the wall, and they'd give the family an all-expense-paid stay at a local resort during the construction. Tisha's reaction was newsworthy. Tisha broke down into tears. This was the kindest thing anyone had ever done for them, and as they packed their bags for the hotel stay, she kept thanking the Fox 5 team over and over. Little did she know, the kindness wouldn't stop there. As soon as the family had left, the Surprise Squad moved all of their furniture out of the house so they could deep clean, paint the walls, and replace carpeting and doors. They also got to work fixing up the landscaping outside the home. Gone were the old beds and worn-out furniture. Local furniture stores donated new couches, tables, chairs, beds, and shelving to the family's cause. The local Nissan dealership even donated a brand new 12-passenger van. When the Boachmans returned, they couldn't believe their eyes. Not only was the house redone, but their friends and family had come to welcome them home. As they walked through the newly renovated rooms, their shock grew. Not only did the kids now have spaces and furniture to call their own, but also had new bedding, games, school supplies, and decor. Holly wouldn't have to sleep in the kitchen anymore, and Chad received $1,500 to go towards getting his own apartment. There was one more surprise left. The squad told the family they'd be receiving a year's worth of free groceries from the local grocery store. They'd be able to save money and keep everyone fed and wouldn't have to stress about it anymore. The whole family cried tears of happiness. Relieved and overjoyed, Tisha and Kevin had nothing but gratitude for their community. "I didn't do anything too special, I did what anybody in my shoes would have done," Tisha said. Now, at the end of a tough year, they could truly enjoy their Christmas miracle. "It's just really overwhelming that somebody would do this for us and for our family," said Tisha. Meanwhile, while she was on the receiving end of kindness, another mom not so far away was about to earn a life-changing surprise herself. Thank you for watching this fantastic story. Please tap one of the 2 videos on your screen for another amazing Wonder Stories.